You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter @RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans! Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am the Jacob Valk, except no imitation. I've got to start with the NBA trade that we saw last night. Bryn Forbes went to the Nuggets in a 3-team deal that also involved the Celtics. Forbes is the only piece going to Denver. The Spurs are getting Juan Hernan Gomez, previously of the Celtics, and the Nuggets second rounder in 2028. And the Celtics are getting 2 injured players, Bol, who was previously set to be a Piston, but he failed their physical, and PJ Dozier. So just to recap, Bryn Forbes is now a Nugget. Juan Hernan Gomez is now a Spur. The Spurs also have control of the Nuggets second rounder in 2028. And Bol and PJ Dozier are now Celtics. But again, just to put a finer point on it, Bol and Dozier are hurt right now, and we have no idea when they're going to come back. I know what you may be thinking. You may be thinking, if Bol failed the Pistons physical, won't he just fail a physical with the Celtics? The Celtics technically don't need to give these guys physicals. They can just say, yeah, we'll take the chance that at some point he'll play for us. That's enough for the trade to go through. I'll start with the Nuggets in breaking down this trade. It makes a ton of sense. The Nuggets have been hit incredibly hard by injuries this year. Obviously Jamal Murray, but Michael Porter Jr. too, JaMychal Green as well. The Nuggets have played 42 games this year. Only one player has played in 40 games for the Nuggets. You know who that is? Facundo Campazzo. Out of all the players that the Nuggets have, Campazzo would probably be the last guy on earth I'd want playing 40 games. I'm not a big fan of his. So if you're the Nuggets, you're thinking to yourself, let's add a guy who we know is available. We knew that Bryn Forbes was available. That rumor was out there. And all we have to give up is 2 Schmagegis and a second rounder? Yeah. You do that. That makes a ton of sense. The Nuggets' backup shooting guard was Austin Rivers. All due respect to Rivers, he's not a terrible player, but you can do better than him. This year he's averaging just under 6 points per game, just under 2 rebounds per game, and a little over 1 assist per game. He's shooting just over 38.5% from the field, just under 32% from beyond the arc. You can do better than him if you're the Nuggets. Enter Bryn Forbes, a really good shooter. What's the one thing that we know Bryn Forbes can do? He can shoot, shoot, shoot. This year he's averaging just over 9 points per game, and he's shooting 41.7% from beyond the arc. You know what his field goal percentage is? 43.2. Forbes is a massive upgrade over Austin Rivers. And think about it, if you're the Nuggets, there's nothing stopping you from going on a big run at some point. Like, I understand that they're the 6th seed right now. They're 2 games over 500. They're not setting the world on fire. But realize, Jamal Murray hasn't played a game this year. When he comes back, and he will come back at some point this year, I don't know when, but I do think he will, that team just got a lot scarier. When JaMychal Green gets out of health and safety protocols, that team will get better. Vlatko Kankar is not a bad player. All the Nuggets really had to do this year was weather the storm until Jamal Murray came back, and then go on a big run. Is that easier said than done? Of course. There's no question about that. But realize, the last 3 seasons, this team has won a playoff round every year. And in the bubble, they made the Western Conference Finals. They're a good team. This is a very good team. Mike Malone does an excellent job with them. I don't want to say that the Western Conference is, like, wide open or anything, because it really is a 2-team race between the Suns and the Warriors for who's going to go to the NBA Finals. But would it stun you if the Nuggets made some noise? Would it stun you if Jamal Murray came back and just balled out? Season ends today. The Nuggets are playing the Grizzlies in the first round. Ja Morant versus Jamal Murray. That sounds pretty darn good to me. I mean, that would be a really, really good series. The Nuggets are right to load up for the playoffs. Trading for Bryn Forbes makes a ton of sense. As for the Spurs end of things, I'm not crazy about this haul. I like Juan Hernan Gomez. I do think he's a good player. I think he's a solid bench player. I think there's a role for him in the league. I understand that he hasn't found his niche in Boston, but I don't think he's a bad player. I think he's a good bench player. You don't want him playing like 20 minutes per game or anything, but 15 minutes or so? Yeah. That could work. That could work very easily. The one thing I'll say is, while Hernan Gomez really struggled to find his role with the Celtics, he's really going to struggle finding his role with the Spurs. Doug McDermott and Thaddeus Young are ahead of him on the depth chart. You want to tell me the Spurs could move on from McDermott and or Young by the time the trade deadline rolls around? Well, Young is more likely. He's on an expiring contract. McDermott signed through the 23-24 season. I'm not opposed to the Spurs trading Thaddeus Young. They're out of the playoff mix. Even if they sneak into the 10 seed, they're not going to make any noise when they get there. It is best for them to just blow things up a little bit and build for the future. I don't mind them trading Thaddeus Young. I like Thaddeus Young. I always liked Thaddeus Young. When he was with the Nets, I really liked him. I remember when Sean Marks first came to the Nets. And one of my friends asked me if I was Marks, what would I do? I said the first thing I would do is I would pull Brook Lopez and Thaddeus Young into my office. And I would say, you two guys are my guys. You are my building blocks. I am going to build around you guys. Of course, what ended up happening, Sean Marks traded Thaddeus Young at the 2016 NBA draft for the pick that ultimately became Karis LeVert. And I hated that trade at the time. Yes, the Nets needed picks, but LeVert got hurt at Michigan. You knew he was talented, you just didn't know how he'd come back from the injury. That was very scary. I remember having a second round grade on him. The Nets had to wait a while before he even got on the court. I mean, obviously we know what LeVert became. He's a very good player now, but it took him a while to get there. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, I'm just trying to put you in the mind of 2016 Jacob. So look, I think you could get something for Thaddeus Young. I mean, who's more important to the Spurs going forward? Thaddeus Young or Juan Hernan Gomez? The answer is Juan Hernan Gomez, just because he's younger. The thing is, though, think about the trade from the Spurs end of things. You just traded Bryn Forbes, a really good three-point shooter, for Juan Hernan Gomez, who's going to struggle to get playing time right away, and a second rounder that you're not going to be able to use until 6 years from now. If I'm a Spurs fan, I'm thinking to myself, this isn't the kind of trade you can bang tables over and say, oh, what is Greg Popovich doing? This makes no sense, blah, blah, blah. It just doesn't move the needle. Like, you knew Forbes was available. I think you thought that he'd get something of a little more value than a decent role player and a second rounder that's going to convey way, way, way down the line. So to see that be the haul, that's just underwhelming to me. You want to tell me that the Spurs were motivated to move on from Forbes because they wanted to open up playing time for Josh Primo? I get that. I like Primo. I like Primo a lot. The thing is, though, it's very easy to just say to Forbes, you know, at this point in the season, we want to give our young guns a little more run. So you're going to fall out of the rotation for a little bit. We're looking to trade you. We're looking to put you in a better position. But stay ready because you don't know when injuries are going to happen. Like, the Nets are doing that. The Nets have had guys fall in and out of the rotation. Blake Griffin, Bruce Brown, Paul Millsap. This isn't like baseball or football where starting lineup changes are infrequent. This is basketball. Rotation changes happen, if not every game, then pretty darn close to it. I just don't buy that logic for this trade from a Spurs perspective. From a Celtics perspective, this is interesting, and I'm going to tell you why. While PJ Dozier has a torn ACL, and he's going to be out for the year, and odds are he's going to leave in free agency, that's not a guarantee. Maybe Dozier likes being around the Celtics, he likes their training staff, he's comfortable there. They made him feel welcome, and he wants to resign. Like, Dozier isn't a throwaway in this deal, but he's not the really interesting part of this. The really interesting part of this is Bol Bol. I think every NBA fan looks at Bol Bol and says, you know what? I want to take a chance on this guy. Like, give him some time, and I can develop him. I mean, I think whenever you watch Bol play, you see the talent that's there. Here's a guy who's 7'2", but has shown an ability to hit threes in the past. You want to try to develop his rebounding a little bit. You want to try to develop his defense a little bit. I mean, he's not the kind of guy who you just throw away and say, you know what, we gave it a shot. It's not going to work. The Nuggets, I understand why they did. They spent 2.5 years trying to develop this guy, and it just didn't work. But if you're another GM, you've got to look at Bol and say, you know what, he's worth a chance. I'll take the chance that I can develop this guy. It's funny, in 2K20, Bol Bol was like the guy you traded for in franchise mode. You could get him for cheap, he'd always develop, and he'd always put up like a ton of points per game. It was weird. Very, very weird. I mean, for the Celtics, this makes sense. Take a chance on a young player who maybe you can develop, and worst comes to worst, if he doesn't, okay, all you gave up was Juan Hernan Gomez. In essence, you got 2 lottery tickets if you're Brad Stevens. You got PJ Dozier, who I'm not a big fan of, and even then he's a pending free agent, so you really can't count on him too much. But I guess there's an outside chance you can develop him. Maybe like a 5% chance. I don't know, I'm being generous. And then you look at Bol Bol, and yes, he's a big man with foot problems. That scares the ever-loving mercy out of me. Just look at what's happening with Zion Williamson. I think he's worth the gamble that if you're the Celtics, you take it. Like, I'll take this lottery ticket. I mean, I'll say this. The odds are that Bol just flames out of the league. Alright, he can't stay healthy, his game doesn't develop, and within 3 years he's going to be out of the league. But there is a chance, maybe like a 15 to 20% chance that this guy does put it all together, and he does stay healthy, and he gets consistent playing time. And you see his unicorn skill set. Look, I'll say this about the Celtics. I understand that their bench has been an issue all year, but you just think about the young guns that they have there. Peyton Pritchard, Romeo Langford, Aaron Nesmith, Grant Williams, and Bol. You've got a ton of young players, and you've got players who everyone would say, yeah, it wouldn't knock my socks off if those guys all turned into good role players. I know it hasn't happened this year. I know Aaron Nesmith has struggled. I know Romeo Langford has struggled. But realize, those guys are both 22. It's a little too early to give up on them, don't you think? Again, would it knock your socks off if they turned into solid role players? See, the Celtics are in a weird spot. They have a ton of players that they need to develop, but they also have players in Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Dennis Schroeder, etc., who are built to win now. So how do you toe that line? You bring in guys like Josh Richardson and Inez Freedom, and those guys give you a better chance to win than your young guns, but realize their playing time comes at the expense of your young guns' development. Aaron Nesmith has played less than 11 minutes per game this year. If you want him to get good, and he showed promise his rookie season, he's got to play. Like, let me ask you something, Celtics fans. You're the 10 seed right now. You're one game over 500. I'm not saying you're a terrible team, but you're not going to make a ton of noise if you get to the NBA playoffs. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if you lost to the Raptors in the play-in game. Wouldn't surprise me if you lost to the Wizards either. Is it better for your franchise to say, you know what, we have these young players, we want to play them, instead of guys like Freedom and Richardson? I know you're clinging to the hope that Tatum and Brown and Schroeder can elevate you to greatness, but it's not going to happen. Alright, that ship has sailed. You had the bounty of Nets picks, and you couldn't make an NBA Finals with them. Alright, that die has been cast. So when are you going to wake up and smell the coffee and realize that maybe, just maybe, it's better to give our young guns consistent playing time? You trade Richardson and you trade Freedom, and you let the young guns develop. I understand that Bol isn't going to play right away, but the Celtics do have Bruno Fernando. Good rebounder. He's 23. Wouldn't you rather try to develop him? I mean, I like Inez Freedom. I like his story. But realize, Fernando can turn into Freedom. Fernando's 6 years younger. It's better to try to develop Fernando, and by extension Bol Bol, than to keep trotting out Inez Freedom for some non-existent hope that you're gonna go on a crazy run in the playoffs. Like, think about this team for a minute going forward. Schroeder, Smart, Brown, Tatum, Robert Williams, and off the bench, Pritchard, Langford, Nesmith, Grant Williams, and either Bol Bol or Bruno Fernando. I know you're taking a chance on those guys. Alright, there's no guarantee that all of them are going to develop. But again, it wouldn't knock my socks off if they did. The Celtics have talented young players. Like, if I'm a team like the Thunder, or the Rockets, or the Pistons, I'm saying, yeah, I'll take those young guys. I'll take a chance on them developing. The Nets took a chance on Karis LeVert developing. He developed. The Nets were able to trade him for James Harden. The Nets took a chance on Joe Harris developing. He's one of the best three-point shooters in the NBA. The Nets took a chance on Spencer Dinwiddie developing. I think it's safe to say that worked out. You're not going to hit a home run on everyone. Some of those guys will bust. Jahlil Okafor didn't work out for the Nets. Archie Goodwin didn't work out for the Nets. Nick Stauskas didn't work out for the Nets. But if you give these guys playing time, and you say to your fans, you know what, we're pushing back our window a little bit. We still have a young team. No one who I just mentioned for the Celtics is 29. Okay, that's a young team. You push the window back a little bit, and it's okay. You can still win with this current group. If I was Brad Stevens, I would look to trade Freedom, Richardson, and Al Horford. Horford may be tough because of his contract, but Josh Richardson, someone would want, and Inez Freedom, someone would definitely want. The Lakers would make sense for Freedom. I'll say that. All in all, if I was to rank these teams in order of winning this trade to losing this trade, I'd say that the Nuggets won it. They got the best player in the deal. Forbes makes a ton of sense for them. The Celtics also won this trade. I like them getting Bol Bol. I'll take a chance on him. And if he doesn't work out, he doesn't work out. All I gave up was Juan Hernan Gomez to get him. I'll take the chance. It's like a lottery ticket. I'll spend $1 on a lottery ticket. If I win, great. If I don't, okay, it's only $1. And I'm going to say that the Spurs lost it. I know that they wanted a clear room for Josh Primo, and Forbes was on the market for a while. But I just think you can do better than getting Juan Hernan Gomez, who's going to struggle for playing time right now, and a second rounder that you're not going to see until 2028. There had to be a better trade out there. Alright, now I'll give you some NHL Valk talk. Specifically on Hurricanes Bruins. last night at TD Garden was Willie O'Ree night. The Bruins finally retired his number 22. I don't know what took them so long. It seems like when Major League Baseball retired Jackie Robinson's number 42 and said no one on any team will ever wear this number again. Players can be grandfathered in, but it can never be issued again. The Bruins would have taken a look in the mirror and said, you know what, we're going to honor our own racial pioneer. If you don't know the story, Willie O'Ree is the first black player in NHL history. He played 45 games for the Bruins, 2 games in 57-58, and 43 games in 60-61. He ended up with 14 points. So he wasn't exactly as good as Jackie Robinson, but still, he opened up the door for black players to play in the NHL. Guys like Grant Fuhr, Kyle Okposo, PK Subban, Kevin Weeks, etc., etc. They have Willie O'Ree to thank for their careers. The fact that it took the Hall of Fame until 2018 to induct him is really upsetting, but better late than never. At least he was alive to see it. And he'd have liked the Bruins to have retired O'Ree's number sooner, so that way he could be at the TD Garden. He couldn't be there in person, but I think he was watching it on, like, some Zoom-like setup or something like that. So, better late than never, I guess. At least he was alive to see it. So, okay, everyone's feeling really good. You know, the Bruins are motivated. They're going up against a great Hurricanes team, but you know that the Bruins are playing for something a little extra. Maybe, just maybe, this will motivate them and they can pull off the upset. Oh my God, they got run out of the building. I'm sorry, but if you're gonna get blown out, don't get blown out on Willie O'Ree night. Don't get blown out on a night when you're honoring one of the most important people in NHL history. Like, look, I remember February 29th, 2020. That was the day that the Islanders retired Butch Goring's number 91. Ironically, it was against the Bruins. Everyone was feeling really happy. You fast forward to the end of the game, and the Bruins blanked the Islanders 4-0. I mean, the Islanders played like garbage in that game. No one left the Coliseum happy that day. Believe me, I know. I was there. But with all due respect to Butch Goring, he's not as important in the annals of NHL history as Willie O'Ree is. Is he more important to the Islanders than O'Ree is to the Bruins? The answer is yes, but in the annals of NHL history, O'Ree towers over Goring. If you're the Bruins, if you're gonna lose close. Alright, the Hurricanes are a really good team this year. They're leading the Met division right now. I don't think anyone was stunned that the Hurricanes won that game. But to win 7-1, that's a baseball score. That's not a hockey score. Tuukka Rask got the start. It was only his second game since returning to the Bruins. His first game back was 6 days ago against the Flyers. He got the win. The Bruins won 3-2. He barely made it one period. He gave up 5 goals. Then after the first period, Bruce Cassidy said, you know what? That's enough. We're going to put in Linus Ullmark. You want to tell me if Ullmark had gotten the start, the Bruins would have won? They did only score 1 goal. You know when you knew this game was over? The Bruins scored a power play goal. Patrice Bergeron got his 12th of the year. It made it 2-1 Hurricanes. So you're thinking, okay, just get out of this period, keep the score where it is, and it's not impossible that you can come back and win. 13 seconds after Bergeron scored, Jesperi Kotkaniemi scored his second goal of the game. I mean, Rask just looked lost. He looked dead to the world. The Bruins looked defeated. It's amazing. The mood in the Garden was one of elation. Then, right when the game started, it's just like, oh boy. Do we really have to sit through this? Tell you what. Let's make it through 2 periods, and then that's it. That is just a disgraceful display by the Bruins. I mean, I'm sorry. But you can't lose a game on Willie O'Ree night like that. That just doesn't work for me. It's okay if you're going to lose, but lose respectably. The Islanders got blanked by the Bruins on Butch Goring Day 4-0. 4-0 isn't great, but it's a hell of a lot better than 7-1. I'm telling you, that's a baseball score. 4-0 is at least a hockey score. If I was a Bruins fan, that game would really, really upset me. Alright, now I'll give you some college basketball Valk talk. And I'll start with ISU versus Texas Tech. The only game yesterday that featured 2 ranked teams. The Red Raiders knocked off the Cyclones 72-60. You've got to give the Red Raiders a ton of credit. After struggling offensively in the first half, only putting up 26 points, they really turned it on in the second half. Kevin Obanor had 15 points total, but 13 of them came in the second half. Meanwhile, all game, the Red Raiders defense did an excellent job of keying in on Isaiah Brockington and Gabe Kalsher. They weren't going to let those guys beat them. And that strategy paid off. Brockington shot just 5 for 14 from the field. Kalsher shot just 3 for 11 from the field. 1 for 6 from beyond the arc. Neither team shot well from 3. They both shot 19%. But Texas Tech did an excellent job of driving to the hoop, drawing contact. They shot 38 free throws. You know how many free throws Iowa State shot? 15. Texas Tech just did a great job of executing their game plan. And now they're really coming alive. Like, they've beaten some really good teams recently. They beat Kansas. They beat Baylor. Now they beat Iowa State. This is a scary Red Raiders team. You know they're going to be good defensively. That's just what they do. But if they can click offensively, if they can generate consistent scoring opportunities, they're going to be a very tough team to beat come March. Give Mark Adams a ton of credit. He seems to have this ship pointed in the right direction. And that ship could have capsized after Chris Beard left Texas Tech for Texas. That was a bad look for the Red Raiders. Adams comes in after failing at Texas Rio Grande Valley. I don't think anyone was excited about that hire. You know what? He looks pretty good right now. Give Texas Tech credit. Now, Chris Beard was in action last night. The Kansas State Wildcats traveled to Austin to play the Longhorns. And Kansas State pulled off the upset. They won 66-65. I mean, this shouldn't be considered a monumental upset because Kansas State is a really good defensive team. And they were also banged up this year because of the coronavirus. I know guys like Nigel Pack and Marquise Noel and Mike McGurl all had to miss some time. But Kansas State's not a bad team this year. They're better than their 10-7 and 2-4 conference record would indicate. And it's kind of funny, you think about a 1-point game. You think about the winning shot being at the buzzer or with limited time left. That wasn't what happened in this game. It was really funny. The last basket was scored by Nigel Pack with a $1:13 left on the clock. He did a good job of cutting to the basket after Marquise Noel drew in the defense. And then that was it. Everyone just went cold. I mean, Texas had a chance with 12 seconds left. Marcus Carr had a solid mid-range opportunity. That's a makeable shot for him. Unfortunately for the Longhorns, he just bricked it. And now if you're a Red Raiders fan, you've got to be licking your chops right now. There is no question about it. Texas Tech is better than Texas. It's not even close. I mean, there were hard feelings when Beard left for Austin. Now he looks foolish. Texas Tech just won a big game against ISU. On the same night, Texas is losing to Kansas State. A solid Kansas State team, a team that's better than their record would indicate, but still, in Austin, that's a game that the Longhorns need to win. I'm not saying that Texas is gonna flame out of the big dance. Their defense is literally the best defense in the nation. In terms of points against per game, they've only given up 55.2. That is insanity. But at this very moment, you can't look at the Red Raiders and the Longhorns and say that the Longhorns are better. The Red Raiders are better by a mile. Very interesting how things like that work out. I'll close this show out by talking about Duke FSU. The Seminoles were able to pull off the upset. They beat the Blue Devils 79-78. Did they deserve to win this game? The answer is no. They shot just 36% from the field and 28% from beyond the arc. Meanwhile, you look at Duke, they shot 49% from the field and 44% from beyond the arc. You can't tell me that FSU deserved to win this game. So how did they win? Duke turned the ball over a lot. They turned the ball over 15 times. You know how many points FSU got off those turnovers? 14. If just one of those turnovers doesn't happen, Duke wins. I mean, this game went into overtime. Duke lost by 79-78. They just got sloppy with the basketball. And when that happens, you end up playing with fire, and you can end up losing very easily. That's what happened here. If you're Coach K, you've got to be really upset at this loss. This was a winnable game that Duke just squandered. I mean, I'll give Duke credit for this. They were down by 8 with 4.5 minutes left in regulation. They came storming back. They stepped up on defense. They had to work really hard to force overtime. And they did. Give them credit for that. But it doesn't really matter if you wind up losing the game anyway. I mean, once that final minute of overtime hit, Duke looked gassed. Duke was up by 2 with just under a minute left. And no one picks up Caleb Mills. No one picks up the guy who would end up with 18 points and was by far and away the best Seminole on the court last night. The guy is shooting 37.5% from beyond the arc this year and is the best player that FSU has. No one's going to pick that guy up. They're just going to let him shoot an open 3. You know when that happens? When you're tired. When you get gassed like that, you get sloppy. Stuff like that can happen. Now on the next possession, Paolo Banchero hit 2 free throws. It gave Duke a 1-point lead. Give Banchero credit, he had a double-double, 20 points and 12 rebounds. But then Raekwon Evans made his free throws. It put FSU up by 1. So we've got under 10 seconds left at this point. Duke has a chance to win. They just get off a really bad shot. Instead of getting the ball to Banchero or even Mark Williams, Wendell Moore takes it, drives right into the teeth of the defense, and puts up a really bad shot that ends up getting blocked by John Butler. I mean, Butler is not a bad shot blocker or anything, but that never should have happened. You can't drive into the teeth of the defense when you're not even the best player on Duke and put up a bad shot. That's the shot that FSU wants. I mean, you could have gotten the ball to Trevor Keels, and I would have been okay with that, even though Keels was having an off night. Get the ball to Banchero and let your best player either win or lose you the game. You can't have Wendell Moore driving into the teeth of the defense and putting up a bad shot that ultimately gets blocked. That was a tough way to end this game if you're Duke. If I'm Coach K, I'm having a tough time falling asleep after this. This was a winnable game, and Duke just blew it. Until tomorrow, I'm Jacob Valk, and always remember, if you disagree with me, You're wrong.